All right, so welcome back to another episode of the Freedom, or I have a timer on there. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom First podcast. Today we have on Marion Reneau. She is a UFC fighter. She is a teacher, a gym owner, and a mother. Just a few of the things she does. So welcome on the show, Marion.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we have Eric, our co-host, back on today as well. So welcome. And so I kind of wanted to start it off. We do start with the Freedom First podcast with a couple questions. We call it the Freedom Minute. And I'm going to have Eric kind of start off with the first question.
Okay, yeah. So I recently started following you on Instagram, and I see you're a big coffee advocate. So I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite coffee and how much do you drink?
Oh my God. Okay, so currently right now I am drinking Black House coffee, and let me think. I drink coffee every chance I think about coffee. I think about coffee often, and so I drink it very often. In fact, today, after I'm done with my last workout, my new project is making a coffee bar. So I went on Pinterest, and my bad, I put in coffee bar, and they had a whole bunch of stuff. And so, of course, I wanted to be just like Pinterest, and I bought a whole bunch of things. They came in, and that is my mission, to make a coffee bar. Yes, I have a coffee addiction.
That's awesome.
Awesome. I like it. I'm a coffee person too, and I think Eric is as well.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
Do you drink it black or do you use cream? What's your recipe?
I do a little bit of cream. Sometimes I'll do, when I'm really trying to cut my weight, I'll do vanilla protein. I'll put vanilla protein in there with just a little bit of honey for a little bit of flavor. Oh, it's so good.
Nice.
And if you have ever tried it with tonic water, oh my gosh.
Really?
Oh, never heard that.
Life changing.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I'll have to try that out.
yeah. Thanks in advance.
Thank you. Yeah. So the second question, your most embarrassing teaching or I guess coaching moment?
Oh, hands down, this is it. Like, everybody hears this story, and it happened both as a coach and as a teacher. Okay, so it was probably my third year of teaching. I was doing weight training, and I had a fairly large class, and I was teaching them how to squat. And so as I was going down, you can imagine what happened, but it didn't just happen any spot. It wasn't down the middle. It was right on the butt cheek where my pants just totally ripped open, and I wasn't wearing full underwear that day. And so you can imagine exactly what happened. I walked out of the room backwards. I'm like, hey guys, I'll be right back.
Oh gosh.
All of them were like, with their mouth open. And the same thing happened when I was in jiu-jitsu. I went down, I squat to show them something, and the pants ripped right where it wasn't supposed to rip. And I was just like, seriously? I don't even have a big butt. So I didn't get it.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Okay, so question 3 is, who is your favorite superhero and why?
Okay, so I would have to say Storm. I really like Storm. First off, I love her gray hair. I want gray hair so bad. I tell my friends all the time, the minute I see one gray hair, my whole head is going gray, and I'm going to do it myself. And free on the Brad Mondo show. I don't know. But I really like Storm. She's just very classy, and she's just a strong person. Plus, she can change the weather. I am all for sunny, but yet cool outside. And that's how I always want to have it. So I always want to be able to change the weather.
Awesome. Last question. If you could meet anyone in the world, or I guess dead or alive, throughout the history of the world, who would that be and why?
Martin Luther King. I would love to meet Martin Luther King and pick his brain on his philosophy. And I would want to see what he thinks of our world today.
That'd be amazing. And and then, a couple days from now on Monday, Martin Luther King Day. So good segue to that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, that's kind of our Freedom Minute segment. So I want to kind of go into your story briefly. I know you started in MMA a little bit later. How did you kind of start? Was fighting in your, early on at all? Like, how did that all play into everything?
Meaning, did I fight in school or?
So when was your first fight, I guess?
So I never was into martial arts as a kid, only because we were, fairly poor and we didn't have a whole lot of money for extracurricular activities. My brother is the one who actually was allowed to get into karate because, boys can fight, but not girls. Believe it or not, I love my dad, and he's here today. He's out working on my Jeep with me, but he was, I would say, a little bit of a male chauvinist when it came to women and boxing. But it was because he was raised that way. And in his country, women just didn't box. They didn't at that time in the 50s and 60s. So fast forward a little bit. Yes, I pretty much fought in every grade level. I would not recommend it. Students, don't do it now because they kick you out of school. There's no tolerance. But back in my day, it was like whoever started the fight is the one who got suspended. I never started the fight, but boy, did I enjoy it. So it started in kindergarten and all the way up. So I've always had, I liked that type of confrontation. I grew up watching boxing with my dad, and I guess I just always loved it.
So how old are you when you had your first like big fight? So like maybe your amateur fight, like when did you start, or when did, I guess better yet, when did you start training?
I started training when I was 28, and I do believe I had my first fight when I was 33, 32, 33.
Yeah. Okay. So like most fighters, they usually start a lot younger than that, right? So you kind of got a late start on this, and looks like you've been kicking butt ever since, and you were just a natural at it. So that's awesome that, you're one of those very rare stories to where you start a little later, because most of these people grow up doing this stuff, especially professionals, probably most of the UFC individuals. Yeah. So
absolutely. They had some type of training, but I don't think I would have been ready as a young person. Like mentally, I just don't think I would have been strong enough to where I need to be right now. I think I went through a lot of crap that, helped me gain that mental strength.
Right. Because you're seeing fighters come in younger and younger all the time. All these 21-year-olds coming in UFC or Bellator. So yeah, I think that a lot of them probably are mature or immature at times when they come in, and I think that's a good point you bring.
My niece, she's a prime example. I have nieces. I don't have any nephews. I have all girls, and obviously they're going to fight. They're going to learn how to fight. Sure. They are currently all in wrestling. They're all in jiu-jitsu, but one of them, more than the others, Josie, she wants to be a fighter. She's like, I'm going to be a fighter. I'm going to be a champion. She's 9 years old. She was actually in our sparring session today. She either watches, she's learning how to do stand-up just a little bit. We don't throw her into obviously sparring just yet, but she's amazing wrestler. Ooh, girl, that girl is tough.
Wow.
She can't take me down though.
Not yet.
No.
So I guess with someone who's like around 9 years old, so when can they start competing and go into those sort of like, not necessarily maybe like an actual fight, but is there like some sort of like jiu-jitsu competition that they can do, or how do they start getting their feet wet in that?
Oh yeah, so she's already competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments right now. With COVID, there's wrestling tournaments. There are wrestling tournaments. They're kind of like low key. Yeah. Nice. We're gonna do it anyways, kind of thing. And that's just the wrestler mentality. And in all honesty, if the parents are okay with it, then they can rock and roll. So she does jiu-jitsu competitions. She does wrestling competitions. We are not in Thailand. We're in Thailand. They start pretty much sparring and fighting at like 5, 6 years old. Dang. I don't want her to get into that just yet, but I want her to learn the foundation of stand-up and the fundamentals of stand-up, and then she can segue into that. She has plenty of time.
So how often are you sparring now? Because I know, like, if you look back in the day, like whether it was in Brazil or Thailand, like they would just go hard, like with their sparring sessions. And I know some of the guys have started kind of drawing back on sparring time. How are you? Do you still spar a lot? Like, how much time do you put in a camp?
We spar hard probably once a week, and then we do technical sparring throughout the week, maybe a couple of times. But we're very cautious. I'm very cautious with who my training partners are. I don't want somebody who's just going to go wild and not really help me out for a professional fight. So I'm very cautious with my partners. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that. It was a hard lesson, but I pretty much learned how to train smarter.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, you go back in the day, some of those guys coming from Brazil and whatnot, like they would just go hard and knock each other out in training sessions.
Yeah. So Chris Cyborg is she was actually my mentor as I was rearing up into the fight world, and I was having a conversation with her, and that's what she came from. It's the Shoot the Box from Brazil, and they came from a series of fighters who just got in there and just swung for the fences. And it was kill or be killed, pretty much.
And I mean, you're coming into fights with injuries and stuff, doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad enough you're already doing damage on your body, but to go in injured and then try to fight at 100%, obviously, it's difficult. So I think fighters have gotten smarter in that aspect.
Yeah. So kind of you started training in MMA. What made you want to go into the professional fighting and start actually getting paid for it?
Getting paid for it. That's pretty much the only reason why I did this was for the money. I was a struggling single mother, and I cannot stress struggling enough. And I can emphasize it, but I always tell my students, nobody's going to know your struggle. It's not meant for them to know exactly what it is you went. You can tell them all you want. They can empathize with you, but they're truly not going to feel what you felt. They're not going to understand it. But it was to the point where even though I was a teacher, I was still kind of living paycheck to paycheck and starving towards the end of the month just to make sure my son could eat. And so I seen a competition between Gina Carano and Chris Cyborg, and it was on TV. It was two women. It was a phenomenal fight between them. And I heard they got paid. I was like, what? They got paid to do what? Say that again.
I've been fighting
and I was just on a mission after that. I was like, I could do that. I can do that. I can do that. And I remember my first fight, I got paid $300 and I was excited.
That's awesome.
I left that fight and I went grocery shopping. I had my refrigerator full. My freezer was full. It was the best feeling ever. I'm like, when can I do it again? Because I need more money for food, for gas, for whatever the case is. I did it for the money and to save up for my son's college.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did it feel? You're sitting at home watching this fight and you're like, oh, this is Cyborg. This is awesome. This is a really cool fight. And the next thing you know, a few years down the road, you're training with her and she becomes your mentor. Like, how did that feel going from like seeing something you kind of looked up to for that moment, and the next thing you know, you're right there with her and you're doing the exact same thing and you're fighting? Like, how awesome was that?
It was kind of surreal to go in and train with her. She's very intense.
She looks like it. Yeah, she's gangster.
Very intense, but she's the sweetest person. Like outside of the training world, she's very, very sweet, very down to earth. And so it was kind of surreal for me at first, but then I felt like that's where I was supposed to be. Like finally my dots started connecting, it was meant to happen. So
that's awesome. So kind of moving forward in, with the situation right now, how has, I guess, being a business owner, number one, being a teacher, being a fighter, how has all of that kind of affected you with COVID and stuff right now? Because I know a lot going on with a teacher just alone, but then you add the business aspect, the fighting.
Wow, that's like aspect. A huge general question. Okay, so as far as being a teacher, in all honesty, back in August when we first started, if you were to tell me, hey, we're going to still be teaching with distance learning, I would have been like, yeah, whatever. I hate it. I hate distance learning. I am a hands-on type of teacher. I like to build rapport with my students. I like to be in front of them. I'm very energetic. I'm nonstop moving. If you can tell, it's like hard for me to just calm the hands down. I would prefer to be face-to-face with my students. So that has been difficult for me. It's been difficult having them message me with some of their struggles that they're going through because, I want to help them. I want to solve everything. I can't, but I do my best. So that has been difficult. As far as my business goes, during the first shutdown, obviously we had to close the gym for a couple months until we found out exactly what's going on. We have been able to open up since then, under restrictions, obviously, but my training never stopped. My training since the shutdown, I could not stop. I'm like, there's no way that I am going to be able to take off 2 months from training. There's none.
Right.
I have my husband. He's my head coach and one of my training partners. We never stop training. I have a few small group of training partners. I was like, hey, if you're okay, come in. I need training partners. So that hasn't stopped. The business is still ticking, and training for fights. It's just something that I've learned to do. And I honestly think that as a heptathlete, when I was at Long Beach State, helped me get ready to multitask in the future. I say it all the time. If it wasn't for that time period, I would not have learned.
Right.
So kind of going off of that with the COVID stuff, it's obviously been extremely crazy. How has that been as far as like the testing for the UFC and when you walk into a fight, and how does that process go?
Oh, they are very strict, very strict. So they rent out a whole entire hotel just for UFC athletes. There's nobody else staying there but UFC athletes. So the fights are either in Vegas or they're in Abu Dhabi. My fight coming up will be in Vegas. So we'll go to this hotel and we'll get tested immediately. Me and all my corner will get tested, and then we'll get the results the next day, and we can do what we need to do as far as training within means at the hotel. They provide us our own separate room to train in. That's it. So maybe on the second floor, it'll be me and maybe 3 other fighters and their camp on that floor. And then that's it. It's pretty awesome. They're very strict. The day before weigh-ins, we have another test, and then we are quarantined in our room that entire time. And then we'll get the test results back, and we're still quarantined until our fight.
Have they still been like, I guess, coming to you with the drug testing and stuff like that? How have they been with that with COVID?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah, because I know because they'll pretty much come at any time, like even, like pre-COVID, like they'll show up at work and stuff and test you.
Yes, many times. I've had pretty much the same tester for the last 6 years. Her name is Lorena. She has been such a sweetheart. She knows my schedule by heart. So she would come to the school. She's like, I know you have prep now, so I'm here to test. I'm like, yeah, come on in. And all the students would be like, oh, Mr. No's getting drug tested again. Mr. No's getting drug tested again. I'm like, yes, but I'm not on drugs.
Yeah.
But yeah, she'll come at like 5 a.m, like on a Tuesday or Thursday, because she knows I'm up that early. But yeah, they pretty much come whenever.
Yeah. Nice.
So what kind of mentality do you have to be a fighter? Because I mean, like coming from your background, like you said, you were struggling, you grew up kind of poor. You were a single mom who was just relentless on the go and just making sure her dreams became a reality. What kind of mentality do both of those play? Does it add up together to where, you know, you were always like, just always striving to be better and always striving to have a better life for you and your son? Do you go into that in the same way with your fights as well?
I go into my fights. This is my thought process. I pretty much, when I walk into the cage, I go into my fights thinking, I am going to die winning in here. Because if I don't have that mentality, she might have that same mentality. She's going to die. You know, she wants to do as much damage as possible to me, and I don't want that to happen. I want to protect myself at all costs. So I have to go in there with a kill or be killed mentality, period. The cage is locked from the outside, and the only way out is to tap or get put to sleep or win by decision. So I only have a couple of choices, and that mentality cannot change. So I always tell everybody I have 2 personalities. It's my, here I am talking to you guys, hey.
Yeah.
And then when I get in the cage, it's like somebody's going to die.
Yeah.
And every punch, I'm like, die, die, die. Like in my head, I'm like, how can I get my punch to go through her skull?
Yeah, and you could see it like watching your fights, you know, whether it was with Holly Holm or whatever it is, going even back that far, you could see it on your face walking to the cage. Like, you're all business, you're ready to die in there. So, yeah. Speaking of mentality, I had to ask you this question. Most fighters, that's what they do for a living. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. And you are not only a UFC fighter, a trainer, but you own your own business, and you're also a full-time teacher. How do you manage all of that going on at the same time?
I don't know.
Coffee. Coffee's the answer.
No, that's the $1 million question. Everybody tends to ask that question. And then I just revert back to when I was in college, I was a heptathlete on scholarship. I was a double major, taking 17 units, 18 units. I don't know if people know what that is anymore, but it's pretty full time.
Yeah.
And I was working part-time. So I had a pretty difficult major. I majored in kinesiology, and I learned how to manage my time. So fast forward now, I just don't make excuses. I know that I need to do this, go to work first. And on my prep periods, when I was in school, I would train. I would use the weight room. I would use the track. I would train. Then I'd get ready for my next class, and I'd have that class. I'd come home, get my son, feed him, do what I had to do, and then I would go train. And then after I was done doing that, I'd eat, then go to my gym and coach. I just make time. I don't make excuses. And I don't sit there and say, I'm tired. You're tired, go to bed a little bit earlier.
Right. Yeah.
I've just learned to make it happen. In all honesty, if somebody wants it bad enough, they'll do it. I don't do well when people give me excuses, because I'm like, yeah, I could have done that too, but I don't know. How bad do you want it?
Right.
So
your discipline has to be bigger than your dream. You just have to be disciplined.
So is that how you were raised? Was that like your dad's philosophy as well? I know you said you had brothers as well. Was that kind of how your household was? Were you always like, there's no excuses here, this is how we do things, we're going to get stuff done?
Oh, pretty much. My dad came to this country. He didn't even speak the language. He came from Belize. He fought in the Vietnam War and gained his citizenship, because that's what they were promising, citizenship for those who fought in the war at that time. I remember the day he got his citizenship, he was just so extremely happy. And I was a young kid. I didn't understand what that meant. I was like, whatever, right? Now I see how important that was for him. He was such a hard worker from the beginning, from working out in the fields to, learning how to do carpentry. He learned how to put on roofs, and he would have that as a side business. And then he would go to his full-time job and then come home to his family. I've seen that. I've seen everything that he did, and I didn't quite understand it until I got older and I had to do similar things as he did. And so just watching my dad and my mom grow up from, we were really poor to a middle income family. It wasn't easy, to say the least. And I pretty much was raised that way.
So I kind of read the story a little bit about you going in just with the mentality, and you were told that you were too old when you went to the Ultimate Fighter, I believe, or before the Ultimate Fighter. I guess, how did you use that? Or did you use it for motivation to basically say like, hey, I can do it and I will?
No, I almost quit. That was it for me. I was like, well, if I'm not going to be in the UFC, what's the point now? What's the point? I almost came back and I almost quit. I was just going to throw in the towel. What am I doing? I need to spend more time with my son, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a coach at the time just say, no, you're not quitting. You have something. You're not quitting. We're going to prove them wrong.
And you kind of did. You came into the UFC and you just took it by storm. Your first couple fights, you were just dominating everybody. And so you kind of see, that mentality that you've told us about, that, no excuse. And it's lucky that you had a coach who pushed you forward. And I'm sure you're very grateful for that. So kind of going into that, you're coming into another fight, I believe February 6th. How's the preparation been for that?
We've had a really solid camp. I've had really great training partners. I have really good coaches in my corner. It's been a pretty solid camp.
Awesome. And so how, I guess, you fought the best. Like, if you go look at your resume, I mean, you fought Holly Holm, you fought, Jessica Andrade, you fought all the best, and you beat Jessica Andrade
Kat
with
Zingano
and the best in the division. Going into this fight, how do you feel? You talked about your training camp's been great. How are you feeling?
Right now, I feel good. Ask me February 7th and I'll let you know.
Right.
But no, I feel good going into this fight. Mentally, I feel strong. Physically, I feel so strong. I feel stronger than I've ever felt in my previous camps, believe it or not. I don't even know if that's possible, but it is. I'm doing things that I never thought I would do. I'm doing multiple pull-ups, for example. Like I never thought I couldn't do a pull-up before, believe it or not. It was the hardest thing for me just to do a pull-up. Really? A pull-up. Now I'm doing pull-ups with 20-pound weights, and I'm doing it for multiple sets of 5, or I'm squatting over 200 pounds multiple times, and it's easy for me. So I'm feeling good.
Great. So I know you have to go, and we don't want to keep you too long. So I guess what last message do you have for our listeners? Where can they reach you at? Where can they, I know you have a fight coming up, so hopefully they'll tune into that. So what do you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, if they want to follow, they can follow me on Instagram. I've been told I need to post more, so I'm trying to post more stuff. But I do post a lot on my stories. Follow my coffee streams.
Every day, every morning, afternoon,
and night. Stay tuned for my coffee bar. It's coming up pretty soon. It should be posted today. Other than that, in all honesty, the fight game is not for everybody. It isn't, but it doesn't mean that you can't take something from MMA and train. So say you don't want to fight. I don't want to be a fighter. You can learn jiu-jitsu. I don't want to be a fighter. You can learn boxing. You don't have to be a fighter, but just getting yourself in the realm of things is going to change your life drastically. I believe it saved my life.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
I was in a bad depression, but I haven't been depressed in over 15 years. I think MMA jiu-jitsu saved my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And like you said, you have a gym as well, and that'd be awesome. It's called Trifecta, I believe, is the name of your gym. Awesome.
Trifecta in Visalia. We have a phenomenal coaches. It's a family environment. It's an awesome gym.
Okay. And so anyone can sign up. They can walk in there. Is that how it goes, or how does that process go?
Yeah, for pretty much ages 5 on up. And if they come by, they express interest, and this is what we have. And your kids can join as well. We have something just for women. I take pride in my women's team. I don't know if you've seen them. It's a huge women's team. I love them. It's my passion. Like nobody touches my women's team. That's how much I love them.
That's awesome. Yeah. So the last segment we do on the show is called the Freedom Fighter of the Week. Basically, it's someone in your life who has been inspirational. It could be right now or throughout your entire life. Someone that's just kind of motivated you and kept you going. So Marion, who is your Freedom Fighter of the Week?
My dad, without hesitation. I respect him. I didn't get along with my dad when we were growing up. Who gets along with their parents? Screw them. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand, right? And now that I see, I was a brat growing up, and I apologize to my dad, but man, I look and I sit back at everything he does and everything he's still able to do. 71 years old right now, and he's helping me with my Jeep outside.
I seen you posted yesterday about
I'm blessed to have him still with me and still have him every time I go into a fight. He's praying for me. He's just there. I love my dad. He's my inspiration.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, and we appreciate you being on, and we wish you best of luck on your upcoming fight. And
Awesome.
You're definitely huge inspiration to a lot of people in the Valley. I know a lot of people talk to you around here. We're Porterville people, so we're rooting for you all the time. Best of luck to you in your fight, and thank you for being on.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom First podcast. Please subscribe and give us your honest rating on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Let freedom ring.